A warm welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle, and today we are joined quite literally by Notts County royalty, the club's all-time leading goal scorer, 125 league goals, 137 in total. I think we all know who he is. He is Mr. Notts County. A warm welcome to Les Brad.
Morning, Paul, and thank you for having me on the show.
Delighted to have you on the show, Les. Today, what we want to do is to kind of look back over your playing career at Notts. And of course, you're so well placed to comment on the whole evolution and history of Notts County over the past, I think it's 53 years since you last walked into the door at Notts County. I'll tell you what, because this is the first time we've gone right back to the 70s. You can probably see here, this top is very, very tight on me, Les, and it stretches. It's a good job it does, but there's the initials, JS, washed, I think, about 1,000 times. Just give me an insight into the great man himself, because he probably is as big a legend as anybody in Notts County's history. What was he like?
He was a very clever man. He moved into Notts County in November '69. He inherited what I consider to be a young group in there who were keen to progress as professional footballers. The likes of Davy Needham, Brian Stubbs, John Nixon, myself, Don Masson, Bob. All those players. Were in there. And a lot of them have been brought in by Billy Gray, who seemed to have an eye for a player. He's never mentioned in the history of Notts County, but he recognised, I think, a bit of talent. Probably what he wasn't good at is coaching and organising that talent. He probably played in an era when players had got their own talent and skills and they went out and performed. Jimmy came in and he brought in tactics. He brought in an understanding of how he wanted us to play in each position, what being a professional footballer was all about. And so we sort of changed our culture as going out onto that field and playing as we thought we were doing okay, into more organised, shall we say. And he did that. He did that by every Tuesday and every Thursday we had a full-scale 90-minute practice match. It was always the first team against the reserves, and it was 90 minutes. And he worked on the pitch with each player, telling what he expected of them, and he believed that that's where we played our football on a Saturday, and so we had to learn how to do it through the week. In my case, as a centre forward, he wanted me to be effective in the penalty box. He wanted me to be an absolute nuisance to centre halves, without giving free kicks away, shall we say. He wanted me to create chances and score goals if at all possible. And he would take anything else that was going on top of that. He wanted the fullbacks to get the ball forward, and in those practice matches we learned how those balls were going to come to us. And we take Bob Worthington at left back. When Bob passed the ball, it came at pace, and it zoomed, and it had in swing on it. And so I played up front with the likes of Tony Aitley, Richie Barker, Barry Butlin, John Cousins, Mick Vinter, quite a few, and we learned how to drop off and go in at the back. At the other side of the pitch at fullback was Bill Brinley, my big mate. Bill couldn't kick a ball like that, so you knew when Bill was getting the ball, it was going to be coming up, hanging in the air. So we dropped off a little. It was that's how we learned how to play as a group, how to attack as a group, how to defend as a group.
Clearly, Jimmy was a great organiser. Talk to me a little bit about Jimmy, the man, the character. I think there's one story you've told me that kind of encapsulates his whole approach to football, possibly two stories. One involved, I think, the birth of, was it your eldest child, and how he treated you and what you could do and couldn't do? Just talk to us through that.
Yeah, Jimmy's life was football, and it started with football, and that came first. And my experience of, well, one of the experiences that I had with Jimmy was my father was suffering with bowel cancer, and it was in 1975, and we were making a trip over to see him at the cancer hospital over in Manchester as a family, and we were told that Dad had only got a few days to live. And I came back to Nottingham on the Monday morning and went straight in to see Jimmy to say that I needed to be at home with my family because my father was going to pass away during the week. And he told me not to go back. There's nothing I could do, and to stay here and carry on with the training. And I was having nothing of that. And I went back outside, jumped in my car and went back. And on the Wednesday, sadly, my father passed away. And I came back to Nottingham on the Thursday morning to start training. And Jack Wheeler was waiting at the first team dressing room door, and he said, "Jimmy doesn't want you to train in there, Les. He wants you with the reserves." And I was sort of banished down to the reserve team dressing room. And I didn't figure in this was pre-season. This was August time, so I don't think the season had quite started at this time. And I didn't get a look in, or he never spoke to me for a couple of weeks. Eventually, we got back on friendly terms, and I worked my way back into the team. That I just didn't understand that. But if we fast forward then until my playing days were over, and I was working at the club, and we were playing West Brom on a Saturday afternoon at home, and I'd made arrangements to see Jimmy that morning because I was taking two coach loads of junior Magpies down to Wembley for a tour of Wembley on the Sunday. And he told me to go and see him. He get some videos and get some signs, things to have some fun with the kids. And I had an hour with him in his office. This was on the Saturday morning before the match, 9:30 till 10:30. Then I went on to do my job, and after the match sort of finished, we did a very creditable draw. It wasn't a bad performance, it wasn't a great performance, but a good draw against West Brom, 1-1. I went into I think it was the President's Lounge in those days, to have a drink, and Larry Lloyd was the coach, and he was stood at the bar, and he got me a drink, and he seemed down in the dumps. I says, "That's okay, wasn't it a draw?" And he looked at me, he says, "Have you not heard the news?" And I says, "What news?" He says, "Jimmy's wife passing away." I says, "Oh dear, dear." So I says, "That happened during the game?" So he says, "No, it was this morning." So I says, "What time?" He said, 8 o'clock. I says, "Well, I was with him at 9:30. He was talking to me about the youngsters and going down to Wembley." And he seemed perfectly okay. He says, "No, Kathy passed away this morning, and I think he called the undertaker in, and he came into work." So it just goes to show that work in football meant everything to him. Not that he didn't love Kathy. He, she was the love of his life, but amazing man.
Very driven, and he delivered some wonderful occasions. Talk to us about. I mean, in that era, it was probably a defining result for you. The League Cup game. You won 1-0 when Leeds were in all their pomp and pageantry and had all the big names. What was that evening like?
Well, first of all, like you say, Leeds were winning everything. They were at the top of the league it wasn't the Premiership in those days. It was the First Division. We were well down the road with Jimmy's coaching. We'd become a team that feared nobody, that had learnt how to win matches at home and how to go away and win matches as well. So we didn't fear anybody. And we went up to Leeds that day. First of all, my big mate, Bill Brinley, he was recovering from injury. And Jimmy had given me the task of rooming with him in the afternoon and getting his head in gear because he was worried about playing against Eddie Gray. Eddie Gray was quite a quick winger, and Bill had been out for quite a while with this knee issue. So we had lunch and then got into our bed, to have a rest, sleep before the game. And he was quite worried about facing Eddie Gray that night. But got him round and we went up there. So there was no real nerves amongst the team. As I say, we didn't fear anybody. Obviously, there was great respect for other teams, but we considered them to be the news that we'd had, where they were an arrogant lot, they'd knock it about. And well, anyway, we got stuck into them, and I think we thoroughly deserved our 1-0 victory. Ian Scanlon popped up in the second half. We got the 1-0 win. But following the game, as we walked towards the tunnel, there was a number of the Leeds players sort of stood there, and the first one there was Norman Hunter, and we thought there was going to be trouble. But he held his hand out and he offered congratulations to all of our lads coming in. And when we got into our dressing room, the first man in there was the Leeds manager, who once again congratulated everybody. And once we got changed and showered, we went into the bar, and all the lads came up, and they were so, shall we say, wishing us so much, so many best wishes because of the way that we had performed. They said that we beat them on merit. There was no sour grapes, and my attitude changed towards the Leeds team and players because of that. They showed us great respect too. So we believe we came away from that thinking, we're in there with the big time players as well now.
Another game, I think, that certainly captured my imagination. I was I wasn't that young. I must have been about 12 or 13. And of course, many of us will have seen it on the television in lockdown because it's been played several times. The Fulham game. And of course, this was a Fulham side that had the World Cup winning captain Bobby Moore at centre half. It had arguably, one of the most famous footballers in history ever, George Best. The charismatic, shall we say, Rodney Marsh. Others I probably can't recollect at this moment in time. Alan Mullery, he was playing, wasn't he? I mean, it was such a star-studded side. You went down and won 5-1. I mean, what was that all about?
Well, once again, we weren't expecting to win by that sort of margin, but as I say, we did go away, and we thought we could get points from any team that we're going to play against, and I think probably Fulham, with all those names that you're talking about, were a little disjointed, and probably they all fancy themselves a little bit. They're all looking for somebody else to do something and win the game. And you just mentioned Bobby Moore, and one of the goals we got, he was trying to be clever and bring it down in his own half, and I managed to take it away from him and slip it to Mick Winter, who scored. And then was it Martin Busby in the second half? He nutmegged, I think. He tried to control the ball in the box and it bounced off. And maybe that's not showing the respect that we should have got from them. And we worked hard. And Stevie Carter scored one of the greatest goals in that game that you'll ever see. He picked up the ball probably 30, 40 yards from our own goal, and he went through and stuck one right up in the top corner. This is one of the best goals you'll see.
Now in the modern era, Les, if you were playing against England's World Cup winning captain, if you're up against George Best, there would be a massive fight among all of you to swap shirts, wouldn't there? A massive fight to get it. But it wasn't like that in them days, was it?
No, and I'm not sure why, because maybe the shirt had a number on it. Wasn't the possession of a player as it is today. The name of the player goes with the number. Throughout my time, I've worn the 7, the 8, the 10, the 9. more often than 9. Maybe that's some reason why. I just don't know. But
it never crossed your mind ever, Les, as a professional footballer in those days, like when you beat Leeds, to ask for one of their shirts. It just wasn't the done thing.
It just wasn't the done thing, and no other player that I'm aware of in our team did anything like that. In fact, I well remember an end of season friendly match. Was it Minsk Dynamo?
Minsk Dynamo, yeah.
We were off to Gibraltar the following morning after the match, and Jimmy Sirrel had said that these boys will want to exchange shirts. Do not exchange your shirt. Well, Eric Probert did. And Jimmy called a meeting and he went ballistic with Eric, and he said he was going to stop him a week's wages to get the money back. Because in those days, you say, money was tight. There was no income coming from sponsorship deals, from TV. So it was all self-generated. And I don't think Mr. Dunnett would have liked to give too much money away. And those shirts after one season were probably handed down to the reserves to play in the next season, and so on. And that's how it was.
When you look back on your playing days at Notts County, is there one particular game that sort of you rate above all others for either a personal reason or for a reason of success for the club?
That's a very difficult one. Jimmy always criticised me for not scoring enough goals, and that's probably my character. I was probably brought up more as being a team player. I can remember getting on to Kevin Randall a couple of times when I played with Kevin. When he didn't pass me the ball, if there was even if it was 90 to 10% against, he would still have a go. When there was a better opportunity. He frustrated me a few times, but I tended to set people up as opposed to, shall we say, going myself. So it's very difficult to pick out, Jimmy brought us up to win as a group of players. And he was fortunate that there was a young, hungry group when he came in, willing to listen and go along with the way that he wanted us to play. He didn't get that when he left us in was it 75, 76, and went to Sheffield United. They had some players there, lots of experience, and they didn't like the way he coached, and he found it very difficult there. And when he came back, he pulled me into a meeting and asked me what I thought of him coming back. And, we exchanged a few words, and he told me about, the boys didn't get on with him at Sheffield so much. So it's difficult. It's all about creating a group. You see, people say to me now, do you miss playing football? I miss more than anything the dressing room atmosphere. There's nothing better than going into training in the morning and the banter with the lads. That was the best thing that ever happened in my lifetime. That camaraderie that was built in there, and the will to fight for each other, and I'm part of a group. You've been involved, Paul, with the Former Players Association, and whenever we have gatherings, it always the group from those sort of, when you go back those number of years, there's a camaraderie that wants to get together again and pull together. And I don't see that with more modern players. I think I'm not talking Notts County here, but I think that probably the driving force is more money orientated these days than probably playing and wearing that shirt with pride.
Who were the characters then in the dressing room in your era?
Oh dear, we had lots. Bob Worthington was a great character. Bill Brinley was up there at the top of the list.
Was there a leader in the dressing room? Was there a leader? Would that have been Masson or not?
Don, his autobiography's coming out soon, so I don't want to spoil that. I know he's done a chapter that probably I'd reel everything off in now. But Don was a really strange guy. We could never understand why a player of his talent has dropped 2 levels of football. He had two wonderful feet, left, right, and when you watch football today, the midfielder all he seems to be is a wall, knocking it back to the centre half. Don, whenever he took the ball, he was going to do something with it, inside of fullbacks, over fullbacks' heads, up to front men, get it back. He was always involved and on the positive side. And what a fantastic player! But his character was very bad, he admits all of this. As I say, you must get his book and read all about it, because it will be a telling story. But the characters, were.
What was Stubby like? Because obviously Stubby and Needham were probably the best central defensive partnership outside the top flight at that time.
Yeah, well, Stubbsy comes from a background of darts and dominoes in the local pub, so there's lots of stories to tell of who he beat and how many he scored. He got 180 in the previous start. Oh, yeah, it was great. Tony Haitley came in with all these gatherings from playing at Liverpool and playing at Chelsea, whatever. And one day he came in with an air rifle. And he says, right, lads, so he got Bob Worthington, he got all the lads outside, and he aimed this gun at one of the boards at the far side of the ground, and he couldn't hit it. And Bob Worthington says, let me have a go at this. Boy, he hit it straight away. We never saw that again. So it was all that sort of wonderful banter. And the pranks that were being played as well, that you grow up with, and it becomes part of the camaraderie.
It's another oft-told tale, but let's hear it, because some people may not have heard it in detail, was Manchester United. I mean, it's a staggering story in its own right that United were in the second division of English football. They'd been relegated. And then I think final home game or final game of the season, they're getting promoted back up. It's at Meadow Lane. And there were battles on the pitch, but probably the battles off the pitch, and in your case, in the dressing room, were probably as keenly contested as any. Yeah.
Yeah, they needed a point to definitely go up, and I was sub that day, and I remember sitting along on the bench with Jimmy and Jack, and looking up at the ground seemed to be pretty full of red and white. There was a lot of Manchester United in there. And the referee blew the whistle quite close to the touchline at 2-2. And the players got in very, very quickly. And we all got into the dressing room. And in those days, at the front of our dressing room, high up was frosted glass. And then on the exterior of that, there was metal bars. If you went into to stand on the terrace in front of the seating area of the main stand, you could actually touch the glass through the metal bars. Well, this terrace got invaded by the Manchester United fans. I think the Notts fans had sort of got out of the way. And this terrace had lots of shale on it. And they were smashing the glass, kicking the glass in, and they were whistling this shale through into the dressing room. And we'd moved to the far end of the dressing room to get out of the way. And Jimmy, by this time, he'd come in, saw what was going on, and he quickly got into the physio's treatment room, and we wondered what was happening. And he came out with a scalpel, and he said, better not use bad language, but you can imagine what he did say. Let me get at that. And he charged out the dressing room with this scalpel, saying he was going to kill 5,000 Manchester United players on the pitch. I think there was police in the tunnel, and they wouldn't let Jimmy get through to the other end, but he was serious about doing it, no doubt. Anybody that tried to damage his pitch, his stadium, would be in for quite a mouthful.
He was fiercely loyal to the players, wasn't he? You know, he would be very hard on the players themselves in the confines of the training ground and the dressing room, but woe betide anybody that had a dig at his players to Jimmy. Yeah.
Jimmy was we had issues occasionally, flare-ups, arguments going on. I remember one with Tony Haitley. He came in at half time on one game and was mouthing off about something, and Jimmy says, "Take your shirt off. You get ready." I think John Cousins was sub, and Tony disappeared into the toilet area, came back moaning and groaning still. Jimmy picked up the had quite a big container with coffee in, and he goes throwing it around the room. He was covering everybody. So we had a few flare-ups in there, but they gradually got sorted. But he made a point, and he said, "We will never ever discuss football after a match. We'll wait till the Monday morning and we sit down with calm heads and we discuss fully." And that was introduced through several altercations, and we talked everything through, and we moved things on in the right manner. I think we learned from these meetings, definitely.
Jack Wheeler was a great servant for the club and a great foil for Jimmy. In the modern era, a manager will have half a dozen different coaches, fitness analysts, video analysts, kit men, assistant kit man. Jack Wheeler did all of them. All of them, didn't he?
If it hadn't been for Jack Wheeler, I wouldn't be the record goal scorer at Notts County Football Club. In the early diagnosis of my father with the cancer, Jack was in charge. He was caretaker manager. And my mind got focused on other things, probably not as it should have done to football. And I went off track a little bit, and I dropped out the team, and I wasn't really. No, I think maybe I was looking to do something else, and Kettering were looking to sign me on a part-time basis, and I thought, shall I go there and look for a new life work? And Jack pulled me into the main stand. He says, "Come and sit down with me." And we went and sat in the main stand, and we sat there for about an hour and a half and talked. And he got my head focused again. I can, thank him so much for that. And I got back into the team not too long after that. And we did pretty well. And you talked about him. Yeah. Jack has been the physio, the kit man, the scout, the manager, the assistant manager. It's just incredible. The painter, the decorator. He was just unbelievable, and such a caring man when you got injured, when nobody likes, no professional footballer likes to be injured. There's nothing worse than you're in that treatment room and all the lads go off to the training and it just becomes like a morgue. It's so quiet and you're stuck there, and you've got lamps on your heat lamps, or you're having treatment. And if it goes on too long, I had 3 months with my left knee, and it was a long time. I hated it. But Jack he was so positive, and he always had a smile on his face, and he was always pushing you on. And without doubt, there's not one player that has had a bad word to say about Jack Wheeler.
All good things come to an end, as did your playing time at Notts. And as a professional footballer, it's done fairly brutally, isn't it? Was it Jack Dunnett that delivered the bad news for you?
Yeah, it was completely out of the blue. I thought Jimmy hadn't been back from Sheffield United that long, and we'd had a battle. We were down at the bottom of the league, and he came in, and we moved up. I think probably halfway up the table. I think I'd scored 12 goals that season. I'd still got another year left on my contract, so I got no idea what was to come. Jimmy had gone away on holiday, and I received a call from the club asking me if I would go down and meet the chairman, Jack Dunnett. So I went down, and Mr. Dunnett was in Jimmy's office, and I walked in there, and he said, "I just want to tell you that I've signed your replacement." I looked up, and he says, "I know you've got a year left on your contract, but I don't want you to be playing out your days here. You've done so much for the club. I don't want you playing in the reserves. These 4 clubs are interested in signing you. It was Hull, Oldham, Shrewsbury and Stockport. And he says, I've agreed a fee with them all. You're welcome to go and talk to any of them and sort it out. And that was as quick as it was. It didn't last much longer than that. And I walked out the door, got in my car, and I drove back home, and I made myself a drink and sat there and just started crying. And it's like, boom. I hadn't had a chance to talk to all the lads that, you know, we'd had a lot of success with it. That was it, bang. And got myself together, and I thought, I'm going to show them I'm not finished yet. And I had made a couple of calls. I finished up going to Stockport with Mike Summerby, the manager, and had a great season there. Player of the season, got 23 goals, I think, something like that. And that really did me. I felt that I'd got something back at whoever made that decision, whether it was Jimmy, whether it was Jack, I don't know, but it was Jack done it, sorry. But I'd moved on. And it was quite a shock to life when, boom, it happens like that. But I did learn very quickly that you have to draw a line and move on. There was no point in harbouring bad thoughts. You know, you have to move on. That is a decision that they have made. It was their belief that Ricky Green was going to come in and do a better job. And I can't argue against it. That's what they want to do. But it was my, I'd still got it in my power to say, hey, you were wrong. I've still got things left. And fortunately, I went on and was successful at both Stockport and Wigan.
Jack Dunnett was, he was certainly a very, very clever man, a very successful man, very clinical. I remember David Dean, the ex-Arsenal guy, ex-chairman, talking to me, and he said that Jack Dunnett conducted a meeting better than anybody else he'd ever met in football. And the way you've just outlined that meeting when which you were released, seems to me like Jack had got all the ends covered. They were releasing you. There were some other clubs interested in you, and they'd agreed a fee. And there was nowhere where you could go, really, was there, in the way contracts were structured, that you couldn't have turned around and said, well, I'm going to stay at Notts County. It was kind of all laid out, and he'd given you the carrot of, well, I've sorted a club out for you, and we've agreed a fee, and you can choose which one you want to go to. Very clever.
Well, I could think of one stronger than that as well. It was after we got promotion. I think it was the promotion up into the second division, not the first promotion. By the way, that's 50 years coming up next year, the first one. And he sent out new contracts to all players. And we all had a meeting and said, this is rubbish. We want better than this. And he agreed to see us all. And we all lined up outside his office. I think it was 15 of us. And in the space of about 10 minutes, we'd all been in and out. And I think all but one had signed new contract. But you have to remember, in those days, there was no agents. If you didn't sign a new contract, you stayed on the old contract. And the club had your registration. So you could leave the club, but you couldn't go and play football anywhere else. You could go and work somewhere else, but you couldn't play football. So if there's such a thing as a pendulum, in the days that certainly that I played, it was loaded highly in favour of the club, the owner of the club. This day and age, it's gone completely the other way with the players are in charge, aren't they?
Jack was also the MP, wasn't he? In fact, he was my local constituent, my family's local constituency MP in Bakersfield, Collick Woods. And it seems staggering now, but he kind of had all you lot canvassing for him, didn't he, before the general election? Yeah,
we were called in by Jimmy to say there was, we knew about the general election, but Mr. Dunnett wanted us all to go and canvass for him. up around Bakersfield, and I said to the lads, "It's absolutely." I was brought up to be conservative. My family were all conservative, so there's no way I'm going out touting for him. So I just sat in the car. I went round and sat in the car. I didn't go out knocking on anybody's door like the other lads did.
But he sent the likes of Stubby out to knock on people's doors. Yeah, can Mr. Dunnett rely on your vote?
Yeah, all the players, they went and knocked on doors and they were promoting Jack Dunnett. But maybe he got to hear of it. Maybe that was partly why he dropped it on me when it was time to go.
Now, it's one thing for a professional footballer to have a very long stint with a football club, be very successful, and that club become quite close to him. It's another, and I can probably only think of half a dozen examples in the whole of the country where this has happened, where that player carries on his association with the football club and becomes genuinely a true supporter of the club. You know, you've now clocked up, I think it's 53 years at Notts, with the various ambassadorial duties, setting up of the lotteries, football in the community, Lifeline. You know, you're still involved actively with the club on a regular basis to this day. You know, you travel to away games on ACCO's buses and things like that. That's very, very rare. How did that come to pass from having had a very successful time with the football club, but becoming, you know, a true fan, truly integrated with the club for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I don't think that was in my mind when I moved to Nottingham in 1967, initially in digs at Beeston. But having spent 10 years at the club, with the success that came through those years, with meeting so many different people associated with the club, you know, behind the scenes, supporters. You've just mentioned ACCO. You know, ACCO was on the training grounds collecting balls from back of the goal when we were shooting, and you know, and then to get to know him as one of the hardcore fans that very seldom misses a game, that runs a coach and takes supporters away. There's just so many more lovely people attached with Notts County Football Club. Obviously, I had 3 years at Stockport to Wigan, and I retired. And following my retirement, I got a call, would like to work for the club. I virtually made my mind came along, and it was quite an exciting offer. It was involved in the lottery sales. Scratch cards were quite a big thing in those days, and he wanted me to develop a new scheme, a club scheme, getting local football clubs involved with Notts County in the form of selling our lottery tickets, making higher commission, and being able to use our facilities. And players, we could provide autographed footballs to help raise funds, and so I thought this is exciting to me. There was, I think, in those days about 900 Saturday and Sunday morning football teams, and so I took it on, and I really enjoyed it. Recruited lots of clubs, and it brought in something like about £2,000 a week new money into the club. I got into that, and the lottery manager, Debbie, she retired and moved on, and I got the offer of the job, and through that job, we shortly afterwards we brought in Lifeline. We brought in another attractive fundraiser called Cashline, where people could add another 50p on their paper bill each week through their local news agent and have the chance of winning £100 a day. Well, that was turning over £4,000 a week, and we had so many great schemes coming in, and what was also good was a lot of the people who I got to know over the years at Notts County as a player were coming supporting the lottery. So the lottery was booming, and it was with great sadness that in 1994, that I had to look for another job. I went to the Neil Hook to speak to Neil Hook. I says, look, the government's introducing the national lottery. It's going to kill everything off, because that's what had happened in Ireland. All the charities disappeared virtually when that kicked in. And he said, no, you're worried about nothing. And I said, well, I'm going to have to look for another job if you can't give me one. And that's what I did. And I went all the way up to Newcastle. Newcastle United offered me a job. And then I wondered about leaving Nottingham at early 50s. And then my great friend Dave Pullen at Nottingham Forest rang up and says, look, he says, we've got this the development going on in the Trent End stand. Would you like to come and assist me and all of that? So I went over to Forest and I had 12 happy years there working. Unfortunately for the lottery, County 75, that packed up 6 months later. And some of the great people that had worked down there raising funds, you know, the Pat Worthingtons, you know, Nick, there's just so many of them that were involved in working hard, you know, knocking on doors at night to raise funds. It was, I was really sad. But then, I'd also been involved in the launch of the Junior Magpies, Lifeline, as you said. And when the offer came to come back to Notts, I took it on board and came back in 2004. It was after a couple of years, and I went on to work with one of the club's major sponsors, Joe Sharp, with Hillside Medical Supplies, where I did 5 years. Educated me and provided me with training on defibrillators now to administer CPR, and I went round clinical practices and doctors' surgeries and teaching people how to do that, and I had great satisfaction with that for 5 years. And then out of the blue, she said to me that the Ray True had been in contact, and could I go and help the club with the 150-year celebrations. So I moved into Notts a couple of days a week helping out, and it was a really good year for all parties. And when that finished and I retired from Hillside Medical Supplies, I'd retired, I was 65 then. Ray said, would you like to stay on sort of as an ambassador in a couple of days a week? And that I did. I did some work in commercial. Then I was asked to go and help with the charity side, football in the community, which was a great eye-opener to me. I worked at the club all those years and I hadn't realised how much good work that football in the community was doing in our local community, how they were helping the elderly recovering from cancer, helping them through Alzheimer's and dementia, and the older guys, the training programs. And it was just wonderful. So I sort of got into that and helped out there, and through that I've met Vicky McClure and the work, because her Nana was involved in the dementia program, and we used to talk quite a lot. And then she set up the dementia choir, and she's found a way of how people suffering with dementia can that have got an enjoyment for music can get great benefit. And I've done things in the lockdown. I've made a lot of calls to a lot of disadvantaged Notts supporters, some of those suffering with dementia, and find how much talking about Notts County can help them. So it's my intention, and I've talked to the CEO at Football in the Community, then we're going to try and get together programs that can help Notts County fans suffering with dementia, and how we can run programs and get former players and former managers to come and help. So I've got so much enthusiasm of the club. I don't know if it's come out in what I've just been saying, but as a player and the link with the former players through my era, you know, next year and you know, as Jimmy's first promotion 50 years ago was going to be celebrated, and then 2 years later another one. So I'm trying to get all the lads together. Hope we can all get back together and have a wonderful day at Notts County where the fans can get to meet them and they can parade around the pitch. And I've talked to them already, and I've got about 14 or 15 of those lads that want to come, and that is how much Notts County meant to them, not just me. And they were great times. Notts County has been a major part of not only mine, but certainly theirs as well. And we've talked about Don and the downside to Don. He believes that Notts County was massive in his redevelopment as well as a person. So yeah, it's been something that has been really passionate to me, and it's so sad that we're now not in the league. But I've got great faith in our owners, that they're doing all they can to put things in place for the CEO, for the manager, to move the club forward, because there were messy things behind the scenes that weren't right, and I think a lot has been done to bring the club back to where it should be, run on the right footing, and hopefully we can now move forward in this new season and get the club back in as a league club before too long.
Well said, Les, and I think that, you know, your contribution to the club and its links with the community is immense. We've spoken, haven't we, that you've made many phone calls to Notts fans, as have current players in this lockdown. And I think you also told a very good story. You went to see the club's former groundsman. Is it Peter Thompson, who was groundsman for something like 30 or 40 years, and you went to see him in a nursing home and brought back a few memories for him?
Yeah, Pete was a real character. I'm talking about a guy that used to put a rope harness around his neck, and he pulled this rope chain, probably about 12 foot wide and 12 foot long, to take the dew off the grass. He would walk up and down the pitch. There wasn't too much equipment behind the scenes, motorized equipment. He did have a mower, probably not much bigger than the mower that you cut your grass with that. So cutting the grass took quite a long time. And I well remember the battles that he had with players, with Jimmy, all the managers, particularly on Fridays, because Jimmy liked to get us on the pitch on a Friday morning to work on free kicks, defensive, attacking, to work on corners, both attacking and defending. And Peter used to hate it because it meant he had to mark the pitch after we'd finished. And so all those sort of things went on. But he was a proper character, proper guy, great friend. And when I heard that he was in the care home up at Woodthorpe with dementia, and I was asked if I could go and see him, and it was an absolute delight. And on my arrival at the door, the manager met me, and she said, "I'm going to walk you through. We'll go through this room and that room to see Peter." And I must admit, I have to tell you that he doesn't know anybody, so you know, don't be too disappointed in what you see. And as we walked through, there was lots of men and ladies sitting around, some eating, some talking. And right at the very far end, sat under the window, was Peter. And I got within probably about a goal's width away, and he looked up. He'd had his head down. He looked up and saw him. "Leslie," he said, "how are you?" And I moved up and shook his hand. We had a cuddle, and I sat down, and we just started to talk. And he talked about Jimmy Sirrel going on his pitch on Fridays. We had such a laugh, reminiscing about all the old times and players. And then it was time to go. He got a little tired. And as I walked out with that lady that ran the care home, she said, well, thank you so much for coming. I've never seen him like that, talking like that, remembering things like that. It was just wonderful, she said. So that was another time when it struck home to me that we can help people with this horrible disease if we can touch on what their interests were back in those days and the happy times that they carried, because football affects a lot of people. And I'm actually a beneficiary to a program that is being run by the football in the community called Fit Fans, because so following this last Christmas, I ballooned up to over 18 stone, just over 18 stone. I couldn't believe it. I blame that on the grandkids. We've got chocolates, nuts, and you name it all over the place whenever they come round, and I can't walk past without. So I thought I'm going to do something about it. And the Fit Fans program is something that was set up in Scotland 7 years ago. Obesity was a problem in Glasgow, and funding was provided, and it worked fantastically well. And the big lottery has provided funding down in England, and they've identified 27 different cities where there is a problem. Nottingham's one. And I joined this program, and it was just so much fun. And you know, I'm probably overaged to be on it. I think it's more for, shall we say, 40s to 60-year-olds. Those got carrying a little bit of weight and probably wanted to lose a bit. And what they've done, they've got like-minded people that are attracted to football. That's why they call it Fit Fans. And back in January, I think there's 30 chaps came into this program. Derby fans, Forest fans, Notts fans, Mansfield fans, and so you can imagine the banter. And the program runs in the form of the classroom. There's no diets, but you're advised on what foods are good and what you can put weight on eating and all of that different thing. And then the other half of it split in the gym, where you know, you exercise according to what you can do. Nothing, you know, if you want to push it, you push it. If you don't, you don't. And in the space of 6 weeks, I lost 2 stone. And I've carried that on. Lockdown kicked in then, so we couldn't meet up. But yeah, I've lost nearly 2.5 stone through changing my lifestyle. You know, I've brought a lot more walking into my daily routine. I'm doing probably 10,000, 11,000 steps a day. I'm eating differently. I won't say I'm on a diet, but eat differently. And I feel much, much better, much more healthier to run the program. So yeah, it's just some great things that have gone on.
It's been fantastic, a trip down memory lane. Let's just sort of wrap on a bit of a positive note. You'd alluded to, obviously, there've been difficult times for the club, but you know, you're in and around the club on a regular basis, so you get more access than the rest of us. You think there is now a real positive vibe from the boardroom down to the pitch in the way that the club is going? Yeah.
I've been to the club on a couple of occasions. In fact, I got an invite to go to the match against Barnet, which I was delighted, but I've not had a working role at the club because of the virus. But we're all hoping that we can get a little bit back to normality. And I'm pretty sure that plans are being made behind the scenes to get crowds back into football. So we're going to be starting in a month's time. But I have to tell you this, that I did get an invite to Wembley, and I went down there, and like other Notts fans, everybody else, we were so disappointed that it didn't happen on the day. But the owners of the club invited us back to a reception after the game, and the talk that our chairman gave us was just fantastic in my eyes. And he basically asked for attention, and in the room was the manager, all his backroom team, all the players, and just a few of the staff and invited guests. And he said that when they took over the club, which was, as we all know, just probably a week before the season start, it was very, very difficult. And players had to be brought in very quickly. Probably not all the players that the manager was hoping for, but we had to get a squad of players together, and that was done just before the start and just after the start of the season. And in their, I don't know what the word is, whether it's dreams, that they felt that it was quite a mess, the club at that time, and they thought if they could get the club to a probably mid-table finish of the season, they would be more than happy. And they went on to say that to get to the playoffs and then to go to Wembley was not in their wildest dreams. And they thanked the manager, they thanked the players, and they thanked everybody, the staff and the supporters, for all that they'd done for the club during this sort of traumatic year. They went on to say that, you know, that they were hoping to put a squad of players together for this year that could complete a full pre-season together and then could hit the ground running ready for the start of the season. So their ambitions would be a little higher, shall we say. And I looked round and everybody's face had a smile on it again. And I thought that is fantastic respect for those owners of the club. And so, you know, if you're asking me how I feel, I'm feeling a lot more optimistic than this time last year. No, last year we'd started the season, but a lot happier that the club is in good hands and we can move forward, I think, as a proud club again.
On that note, Les, record goal scorer for Notts County Football Club, many thanks indeed.
Thank you very much, Paul.